Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. A big welcome to you all. My name is Sean, and I'm delighted you are joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today, I am joined by Yannick MVP, who will cover his experiences with Microsoft Copilots in Power Platform and Microsoft 365. We love hearing what you guys have to say, so remember to join in on our conversation about today's webinar and more on it. Our handle is at ESPC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC24. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which is updated daily with the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointeurope.com, and clicking the Content tab at the top. Don't let the learning stop here. Continue to keep up and stay ahead by joining us for our next webinar, Increase Productivity with Power Apps in Microsoft Teams with GoCan. This webinar is the second webinar of Microsoft Power Platform Week and takes place tomorrow, Tuesday, March 26th from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. CET. For more information on this webinar, please check out sharepointeurope.com/Microsoft Fabric Week. Discover the power of Microsoft Power Platform with Power Addicts BE's Power Talk event. Join the Belgian Power Addicts for an enlightening Power Talk session, an event designed for enthusiasts of the Microsoft Power Platform in Belgium. Whether you're a seasoned expert or new to Power Platform, this event promises valuable insights, networking opportunities, and the latest trends of the Power Platform ecosystem. Attention to all individuals considering attending the European Power Platform Conference, EPPC. Our exclusive super early bird promotion will conclude this Wednesday, midnight, March 27th. From Thursday, March 28th onwards, ticket prices will be subject to an increase. Seize this final chance to capitalize on this current offer. Seize your spot today by visiting www.sharepointeurope.com/European Power Platform Conference pricing. So, as always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in the questions window and Yannick will get it during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center where you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'll pass you over today, Yannick. Hello, Yannick. Thanks for joining us today.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'll make you present there now.
So, welcome to this webinar about the Microsoft Copilot. It's all about my experiences in Copilot or with the various Copilots in Power Platform and Microsoft 365. So this is what I learned, what I have seen over the course of the last 6 to 8 months with playing with Copilots. So your experience might be different than mine. But this is what I see and what I hear about Copilot. So let's dive into this. First of all, let's see if I can get the clicker to work. Awesome. So first of all, my name is Yannick Reekmans. I'm a solution architect at Cubix in Belgium, also managing partner. And this means I get to deal with all the problems that customers put on my plate, trying to figure out a way to get a proper solution in place. I have a strong background in the technical things, started about 12 years ago as a SharePoint developer, and I moved up into the cloud with Power Platform, Dynamics 365, Microsoft 365, and a tiny little bit of Azure. As I said, I work at Cubix, and in the last 5 years, I've been awarded as a Microsoft MVP in both Microsoft 365 and business applications. Besides that, and to achieve that award, I tend to be active on social media. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn, and I, from time to time, write a blog post on my own blog. You can find the links there. Feel free to reach out afterwards and ask your questions there as well, or just connect with me to follow along with my journey. So, when we talk about Copilot, and if you're not already sick of all the Copilot stuff that's been put out, this is what Microsoft says. Microsoft Copilot is at the center of everything now. It empowers every end user. Copilot is there for your security operations, for data and IT, for your knowledge workers to get data out of it. Can be used by customer service and sales, as well as with software developers using GitHub Copilot, which incidentally was the first Copilot to be released. Now, if you look at this slide, and having Copilot at the center of things, it's not surprising that customers keep asking about Copilot, especially if you then move along and Microsoft says that there is a Copilot for every Microsoft Cloud experience. Microsoft tells you that there are Copilots for Dynamics 365, for Microsoft 365 in Windows, for GitHub, for Power Platform, and many, many more. It's impossible to keep up with all the Copilots that have been announced and that are available all across the Microsoft Cloud. Now, with all these Copilots available and all the nice marketing materials that Microsoft is putting out and trying to convince you to get Copilot and to use Copilot, it's no surprise that customers keep asking questions about Copilot. And for the last 6 to 8 months, this is what has happened to me as well. So customers come to me and they ask a lot of questions. Let's see. What my customers say is, we need a Copilot. So they're all excited because the marketing message of Microsoft is impressive. They want Copilot or a Copilot. And they ask the question if Copilot is included in their licenses, in their current existing licenses that they're already paying for. They ask questions like, or they say things like, Copilot doesn't work, or Copilot is amazing. And weird questions going, will Copilot do X or Y, some random scenario that they thought about and that they're very excited about trying inside Copilot because a Microsoft representative said that it could work, or they heard about it from another coworker saying if something was going to work or not. So they're going to try it out, and they ask these questions to their consultants. And when I come on the scene with my customer, we have a lot of work to do. And my first response usually is, which Copilot? Because there's so many Copilots available, and the branding of Microsoft is impressive. Of course, a Copilot or everything can be a Copilot. It's not a pilot, it's a Copilot. It's a thing that will help you through your work. It will simplify your tasks. It will help you achieve your goal faster or easier with less effort. And this is what customers remember. They remember just the brand Copilot. But they don't know what it is, and they don't know that all of these things are different or come from different places or have different functionalities. They just want a Copilot. And we follow up with which part of which Copilot do you want? And that has been the major challenge over the last couple of months, is trying to figure out what my customers want from Copilot. What marketing video did they see? What functionality are they excited about and want to try out? Where have they seen anything? Is it a marketing message that was AI generated and is not really grounded in reality at the moment? What are their expectations? So this has been the biggest challenge over the last months. Because in practice, your mileage may vary. And the reason of that is because not every Copilot is the same. It's named the same. It has the same, it has the same branding on top of it. But with Copilot, we tend to think of ChatGPT. The generative AI is what has put Copilot on the map. The fact that ChatGPT achieved these great results is what make customers think about Copilot. The funny thing is that not every Copilot in the Microsoft space has generative AI or even a chat. Some of the functionalities that are rebranded to Copilot already existed way before the Copilot brand was ever there, or before generative AI was even built in. They had natural language understanding, not necessarily generative AI. They used an old version or an old way of interpreting the messages that the users gave to the chatbot, not necessarily the AI models that are provided by ChatGPT. Not even every Copilot is grounded in that large language model. And those that are built on top of that large language model, they've got their application context added in by their product groups, which means, for example, if you look at the Copilot for Power Automate, it will be grounded in the same large language model as Microsoft 365 Chat, for example, but then the Power Automate specific functionality is added in by the Power Automate team. And because things had to move really, really fast at some point within Microsoft, those product groups were not always as prepared or as ready to put all that functionality inside those Copilots. So this means that your experience might be very, very different between each of those Copilot interfaces. Power Automate, for example, had a very strong challenge at the beginning of the release, where if you want to talk about connectors in Power Automate, it only could find those connectors when you literally use their names. Of course, lots and lots of investment has been going on over the last months, and all of that has been drastically improved. But it does point out the fact that not every Copilot is the same, which brings me again to the, and there goes the clicker again, which brings me again to the point that your mileage may vary between all the various Copilots. Now, when customers talk about Copilot, what I've learned is that they mostly talk about Copilots in Copilot for Microsoft 365. This means they have seen some amazing marketing videos or functionality about Microsoft 365 Chat or Copilot in Word, Copilot in PowerPoint, in Teams or in Outlook. Now, of course, you also get it in Excel, OneNote, Loop, and Whiteboard. Those are the functionalities of Copilot that have been included in Copilot for Microsoft 365. These are the Copilots that create your beautiful presentations based on a Word document, for example. These are the Copilots that in Outlook will generate email summaries and then allow you to respond with a generated answer. The most impressive one I find is the one in Teams that allows me to catch up on Teams messages, chats, but also do meeting recap. And the other Copilots are those that are in Power Platform and Dynamics 365. As you see on the screen, there are different Copilots included in there. If you look at Dynamics 365, most of those Copilots are targeted for end users, which means for users of those applications. This means when a user opens Dynamics 365 Sales, they can ask questions about the leads and opportunities that are on the page. They can pull in context of emails, etc., to see if there is an opportunity that has to be followed up upon. And same goes for all of these Copilots inside Dynamics 365. Those are targeted at the end users. The Copilots that are most known in Power Platform are usually targeted at makers. This means that the Copilot there, for example, in Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Pages, are there to support the maker in creating beautiful Power Apps, functional Power Automate flows, or add pages into a Power Pages website. And as a consultant or as a user of all of these Copilots or all the Copilots within Microsoft 365 and Power Platform and Dynamics, we have to fully understand the difference between all of those things to make sure that we deliver the proper value and we find the proper Copilot for the use case of our customers, whether they be outside customers as a consultant or inside customers when you work in your own IT organization, for example. Now, if we go a bit further, then there's always licensing. Licensing is always the big question. It has nothing to do with Copilot. It's just a thing when you use SaaS services. There's always a license involved, and users are very interesting to learn, or especially IT managers and management wants to know how much all of these AI and Copilot goodness will cost them. Now, that depends. And that's the consulting answer, I know. But this is a thing that depends on which Copilot. So it brings me back to the whole beginning of this presentation. You have to figure out which Copilot a user is interested in to figure out the licensing model that is associated with it. Some of these things, like the Copilot in Dynamics 365, the Copilot with Dynamics 365 Sales, Dynamics 365 Customer Service, etc., they are included in certain licensing for the platform. So you don't have to pay extra. Things like Copilot for Microsoft 365 is an additional license that you have to buy as an organization for each of the users that you want to give the Copilot for Microsoft 365 functionality. Copilot for, or GitHub Copilot, for example, is another license that you can add. Copilot for sales or for customer service, which is the new Outlook add-on, it's another separate license that you can buy for your Copilot. Some of these licenses are user-based, so you buy a license and assign it to a user. Others of these licenses are pay-as-you-go, or you pay a price depending on the amount of questions you type in the chat or you ask Copilot. For example, the Copilot for Security is one of those Copilots that has a pay-as-you-go licensing model, or potential for a pay-as-you-go licensing model. So as you can see, licensing is not straightforward. Even though the brand is the same, it's always Microsoft Copilot, it's always Copilot, Copilot, Copilot. Licensing, as well as functionality, can vary tremendously between all of these different Copilots. So Sean, are there any questions before we switch to a couple of demos?
Just one, just like, what's the main difference between ChatGPT and Copilot? That's just the main one there.
Well, then I give the standard response that I always do, which Copilot. No, just joking. The fact is, in ChatGPT and Microsoft 365 Chat, which is the chat that's included in Copilot for Microsoft 365, essentially the difference is that ChatGPT in their large language models is grounded in World Wide Web data, essentially. Whereas Microsoft 365 Chat, which is included in Copilot for Microsoft 365, will also have access to your enterprise data. It can take into account all of the emails that you're sending, meetings that you're attending, SharePoint documents that you have access to, and it can use that to generate a proper answer for all of your queries. So that's the biggest difference between those those two products, essentially.
Perfect, Yannick. Yeah, that's all the questions so far.
Okay, cool. Let's switch to a demo. Let's see if I can show some things. So one of the things that I wanted to show you, or wanted to start with, was Copilot in Word. So I prepped a small document. Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. And if we open Copilot, or if you open Word and we open this document in Word, and it has currently been saved on my computer, you see that when I type something, I have the opportunity to tick this little Copilot icon, and I can draft with Copilot. Now, the fun part of this is I prepped some queries. So this is a document on Copilot for Microsoft 365, and I really would like Copilot to generate me a 3-paragraph introduction about Copilot for Microsoft 365. It shouldn't be including any advantages or limits, and it should sound promotional. So if I try to generate this, it will start complaining. It complains for no obvious reason, because it's an almost empty document, yet it complains about the fact that my content includes a language that Copilot doesn't currently support. The reason for this, it's not super clear, and it took me a while to notice this, is the fact that even though my word is put in English, my computer is in English, my Copilot is in English, and I'm writing the prompt in English, it's still complaining about the fact that there's a language that Copilot doesn't currently support. The reason for that is that in my document, there's already a paragraph that's written in Dutch. So if I delete this thing and I put something random in there, and I go again, I do the same prompt, it will generate me a draft. See, it's now pulling things together and it's creating content for me. Let's hope it finishes fast. So now it's writing and drafting the content that I requested. So it gave me one option this time, and I can choose to keep it. Now, this is what Copilot can do for you, but the fact is that even as soon as there is a language in your document that is not English or not supported by Copilot in Word, it will refuse to generate any content for you. And that's a bit of a bummer, because it's unclear from that error message what the actual problem is. So Copilot for Word will take into account the context, so it will take into account what's already in this document and try to generate content that makes sense in context of an application. When it cannot understand the language of a specific text in the document, it will just refuse to generate anything. So that's one thing. Now I already, and another thing for Word, which is pretty important to understand is, even though Word is included in Copilot for Microsoft 365, it does not take into account any contextual data, except for anything that's already in the Word document. It will not currently check anything available inside your organization. It will not base any of its responses on top of knowledge that already exists inside your organization. A message center post has gone out today explaining that this functionality will be added to Copilot for Word somewhere in April. But it's another proof or another example of how the different Copilots behave differently, depending on where you open it. So where Microsoft 365 Chat will take into account all of the content that you have access to, Copilot for Word will not. Now, if we close this document, because this is, we will not need this anymore, I already created one that has all this content in there. So I generated this document before using Copilot. So it has 2 paragraphs, 3 paragraphs introduction, 4 paragraphs about advantages, and 2 paragraphs about limits. Now let's see if we can generate a presentation for it. So if we look at this, which is in Word, I opened, which is in PowerPoint, I opened a empty PowerPoint presentation, and I made it generate a presentation for me based on that Word document. You can see here that I asked it to create a presentation from a specific Word document. So I provided it the link to the Word document on my OneDrive. It generates an outline, which is not that difficult, of course, in this case. It's the title of the document, and it's the 3 main headers that I have in my presentation. Now, if you look at this, it gives me the agenda, it gives me an introduction, and it puts all of the content in there. Same goes for the advantages. It gives me 4 slides on advantages, because every paragraph in advantages was about a separate advantage of Copilot. It gives me a slide about the limits and another one. Now, when you start with an empty deck, that has no styling applied to it, it will use the default styling available. As you can see, it's not the most beautiful deck, but at least the content is acceptable. It will save you some time copy pasting and abstracting these points out of your Word document. The pictures, however, or the graphics that it chooses, they are not very modern in most cases. They're not very impressive. They're very generic. So you might want to change that out when you build your own presentation. I will try and do that again, just to make sure that I can show you that I'm not lying. So we're adding an empty slide in there. We do the same prompt, and let's see what it does. So it's working on a response for me now. It's looking things over. Normally, well, it's almost there. It's pulling things together. It's like a weighting spinner. Now it's trying to find my file, and now it's drafting a presentation. It will then insert all of those slides inside the presentation. You can easily follow along how far along it is. It's not the biggest Word document, so it shouldn't take super long. And then it also generates speaker notes for me and adds them in there. It's probably a part that I didn't show too much. But as you can see, it also gives you the original content of that presentation, of that Word document. I'm sorry. Now, if you have a corporate template that you would like to use, you can also do the same prompt in there. And it will then use your styling to generate a document. So it will use your master template and try and generate a PowerPoint presentation that adheres to your styling guides. Now, I have done this before, and that worked. While prepping the demo, I couldn't get it to work anymore. So today, it refused to generate a presentation based on my Word document and using my corporate template in there. I don't know why. Let's see if it can do it now, because it seems to be going further than before. So this is another example of how it's pretty finicky in when it decides to generate content, because you can see the history of my queries, and it always responded with something went wrong. Now I try again for the demo. So the demo got "they love me" apparently. And it is generating slides now and adding speaker notes. As you can see, it's now taking into account my agenda styling. It's taking into account the corporate style that we have. So it does work out for now. You see also that it found different images than before. So in this case, it worked. Now,
I think, Yannick, you're just on mute there for a second there.
let's see if this works.
Yeah, I can hear you again.
Yeah.
There now.
Weird. So as you can see, it failed before, but now it's working. And this is my experience with Copilot inside PowerPoint. You're never sure of the results that you're going to get. So if you're counting on Copilot to be super stable or super predictable there, it's always a challenge, or it's always a surprise. So that was Word and PowerPoint. Now, my favorite is Copilot in Teams. And Copilot can do many, many things inside Teams, but my favorite is the one that does meeting recap. So the favorite part of Copilot inside Teams is the fact that it can do transcriptions of your meeting, and then you can ask questions about it. So we did a webinar in January, and it has all the speakers in there, but it also found all of the topics that have been discussed and put it in there as a chapter inside my video. Then it generated meeting notes for me that I can copy out, and it didn't find any tasks.
You just got mute there again, Yannick. I don't know what's going on there. Just for a second there.
This is super weird. If my headset is failing, I'm switching to a different one.
Yeah,
So let me
you're
know
back.
if it's on. Yeah. So when I look at the Copilot inside Teams, I turn it on for every internal meeting that I do, because I can ask it things like what questions are unresolved inside this webinar, and it will find me all of the things that have been discussed, and it will even give me a pointer to the transcript where the presenter has mentioned any of these points. So it's super easy, super difficult, and it even offers suggestions on how to resolve these open issues for that.
Can you hear us, Yannick? You just got mute again. No, I still can't hear you, Yannick. No, I still can't hear you. Sorry about that, Yannick. No, you're still on mute. Yeah, you're just still on mute there, Yannick. Hi, Yannick, can you hear me? Sorry, guys, would you mind bearing with us, if you wouldn't mind, while Yannick tries to sort out audio? Sorry, guys, if you wouldn't mind bearing with us while Yannick tries to get his audio right. If you want to try speaking there, Yannick? If you want to try again there? Yannick, could you click the audio drop down and you control panel, maybe? Yeah, I hear something.
Does this work?
Yeah, that's it, Yannick. Perfect.
Ridiculous. I have no clue what's going on, but none of my headsets seem to be working. So I'm doing it like this. I'm sure the audio quality suffers a bit from it, but at least we can continue the presentation. So I was saying that it will generate the main ideas that have been discussed inside Teams meeting, and it will list all of that on your page, and then you can copy it out. This is my biggest disadvantage about everything that's generated in chat by Copilot, is the only way that you can get it out is by copying it. You have to copy it and paste it somewhere else. So that's super unfortunate, but that's currently the only way that this works. Other things you can do is you can go inside chat, for example. I'm not sure if there's any meeting chat in here. You can ask it about, you can open Copilot in any of your chats, in any of your Teams channels, and you can also use all of that information to ask Copilot to make any recaps on the chats, or the last, to recap the last 3 days of information that has happened inside the group chat, for example. So this is super easy for me to catch up on any conversations that I have missed due to vacation or travel or anything like that. I'm not sure if you've heard everything, so I will just repeat this one thing that I find very important, is there is this calendar app that everyone is using inside Teams, but there's also the Meet app in Teams, which is a new one. And you can use it to see your upcoming agenda, essentially, and all your recent meetings as well. And you can search for meetings, and you can find meeting recaps for all of these meetings that you had or will have. So this is just an easier overview of all of your all of your meetings that are coming up. Okay, so let's close Teams. No, let's not close Teams. So if you look at Teams itself, Teams also comes with Copilot for Microsoft 365. So it's in here, and you can use it to ask several questions about context. So the difference here is if I redo this query, and I'm asking it, when is my next meeting with Carmen? What is it about, and what files can help me prepare? And this is where the difference between Microsoft 365 Copilot and ChatGPT is very clear, because it will now look at my calendar. It will see that my next meeting will be tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. The subject of the meeting is this thing, and it tells me to prepare or to read the 3 of these files. It will also show the references to the files, and I can open them up and, read them. Other things that we can do, for example, list all my upcoming meetings. Let's see if it can find something. So it will look at all of the contextual data available within Microsoft 365. It will look through Microsoft Graph, and it will find all of these things that I have on my agenda. It will list out all the participants and even highlight them so you can click through to their profiles. So it will tell me what is on my calendar. It doesn't seem to be stopping. So it's the first 10 meetings of my agenda are easily coming up. And you can ask many, many questions to Copilot around that. Now, if we look at plugins, this is where you have the opportunity inside Microsoft 365 Copilot chat inside Microsoft Teams to enable plugins that have been created. So we can do web content, but we can also enable any of the Copilot Studio plugins that have been created for Copilot. Now, this chat is similar to the chat inside Microsoft365.com. You can use the same queries. You see, this is the same query that I used before. You have the same history in here. But the difference now is that for plugins, it's limited. So the plugins only work in Microsoft Teams. So even the same Copilot surfaced in a different application or a different place will have different functionalities. Lots of things to be aware of. If we look at Copilot for GitHub Copilot, it comes with 2 different ways of interacting. So I have opened up my PowerShell code, and I have GitHub Copilot open. So I can ask it to explain this open file. explain what this code does. And it will use the PowerShell to generate information about the script. So it will look it through the script, and then it will tell you all of the functionality that's in there. Let's see, because I had some things prepped. And this is where it explains all of the information of all of the functionality that's in there, but you can also make it generate any of your code. So let's see if I can make it do something else in here. And my favorite way of doing this is by typing comments. So I type process all workflows in target environment. And if I enter, it will see that previously, so it will give me a suggestion to output a prompt, because that's what I did in all the other steps that I created before. So I can accept that. And then it will even suggest me to invoke the process workflow PowerShell function, because that's the way that I have structured this PowerShell file. So it learned from the way that I prefer to type or write code, and it will suggest code snippets based on my way of writing code. Now, if we put this in there, the function itself still does not exist. So let's see if we can get it to generate the function. So I will make it write the invoke process workflows function, hopefully. And there you go. It needed some time to think, but it will give me a suggestion for a function. But it's not just that, it will give me 1, 2, 3 different workflows or different functionalities or pieces of code that could lead to a potential solution. Now, I'm pretty sure it's not all correct in this case, but it does give me a very good starting point to work with all of this data. As you can see, it learned from my previous code snippets, knows that I want to use the environment variable functionality. Let's make it a bit bigger. Variable to put it in the URL. It knows about the Dataverse APIs already, or it assumes at least that there is a table called workflows where I can select a couple of things from there. And then it will loop through all of the workflows and say processing workflow. Because this is essentially the way that I have been writing code inside this script. So this has saved me hours of coding just because I could use GitHub Copilot to generate this code for me. I don't have to go Google and find code snippets. It got there with a very, well, with a high degree of completeness. It generates code for me. And it has a very high success rate as well. So I really love this. This has had a major impact on my development teams as well. All of my developers now use GitHub Copilot, and it helps them in all of their day-to-day coding challenges, because it will not just suggest one line of code, but as you could see, it generates a whole block of code for you. And then the last demo that I prepared is the one in Power Automate. This is the one that wasn't that impressive when we started a couple of months ago, but currently it's doing a way better job. So assume that for each email that arrives in my inbox, I want to create an action item in Microsoft To Do. So I type, when I receive an email, add a task to Microsoft To Do. If I click generate, it will propose, this is fun. So I did this demo an hour ago, I prepped it, and it gave me a flow, and that was very impressive. Now, with the same prompt, it doesn't seem to do anything. Let's see if I can try something else. When I receive an email with an attachment, add the attachment to SharePoint. As you can see, once again, this is a, see, now this one works. It's another Affinity situation where a prompt that worked an hour ago now doesn't work anymore. So I have to get creative with my demos, which is fun, but in a real life situation, when the thing that you want to do is turn an email into a to-do item, you'll be very frustrated when it suggests nothing. So let's continue here. It will ask for permission for the connectors and create a flow. As you can see, it's pretty okay in here. So it does give you the ability, and it gives you a skeleton Power Automate flow that you can then complete. Because you still have to fill in the site address and the folder path. And as you can see, it failed on filling in the file name and the file content of the attachment. Yet it does loop on the attachments. So it does know half of the context, but it doesn't cancel. It doesn't fully do all of this. Another, well, it could be a positive or negative thing about this Copilot is only available inside the new Power Automate design. If you do not like the designer, you do not get any Copilot functionality. Copilot is only available in the new designer, and you'll have to deal with the problems or challenges that the new designer currently still has. Let's see if I can make it add another action to it. Send an auto response to the sender explaining that their email will be followed up on soon. Oh, I made a typo. Now it's trying to do something. It's not that difficult of a request, but there you see it put this in. It used the prompt from the when an email arrives and generates the auto response. All the body is filled in, the subject is filled in. So sometimes you get good results, sometimes you get challenging results with these copilots. When you get, let's see if I can make it a bit challenging. After creating the SharePoint file, update the metadata and change the title to auto saved from email. Auto saved from email. Now I expect this prompt to insert the new step in here because it has to do that for every single. Let's see what it comes up with now. And again, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. So you see, it intelligently figured out that it has to put it in here. Let's see. And it, well, it only did half of it. It put in the SharePoint file property, yes, but it did not put in any other metadata to update in there. So that's the limit. So you can see that building these Power Automate flows can be either very interesting, very easy. I use it a lot to build demos. Same goes for Power Apps Copilot to create demo applications. But if you have experience with building Power Automate flows, this might not be the way that you want to build them. And you still prefer to build them step by step manually and work it out in the way that you want to build your Power Automate flows. So Sean, are there any questions? No, Sean?
Yeah, just the one. So how seamlessly does Microsoft Copilot integrate with Microsoft Teams and Power Automate in your experience?
So if I understood correctly, the question was, what is my experience with Microsoft 365 Copilot integrated in Teams and Power Automate?
Yeah.
Yes. So I've not checked that. They can follow up with me specifically. If they mean using Microsoft 365 Copilot in Teams to generate Power Automate flows, I have not tried that, and I'm not sure what the response will be. We can ask Copilot to generate a Power Automate flow, but I'm pretty sure that's not the functionality that's created for Microsoft Copilot for Microsoft 365. Generate me a Power Automate flow that, I don't know, adds a to-do item for every new email. Let's see what it tells me in here. Now it's looking through documents inside of my organization. Well, this is fun. So instead of generating me a Power Automate flow, it tells me how to build it myself. So this is another thing that's pretty frustrating about Copilot. Even though it's named Copilot and everything is named Copilot, it's another example of where the Microsoft 365 Copilot chat will tell you how you could create a Copilot, a Power Automate flow, whereas the Copilot and Power Automate will generate that flow for you. You'd expect this chat Copilot to then redirect you to the Copilot for Power Automate and then generate the workflow for you, which it doesn't. So it all depends on where you put your prompts on what results that you will get. Okay?
Yeah, that's good. Any other questions? Yeah.
No other questions? Then
yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. So thank you, Yannick, for a great presentation and demos. So now we'll get into questions and answers part. So should you wish to ask any questions, please feel free to type it into the question window now. Yeah,
because this brings me to the end. I will wrap up with my slides and then see if there are any more questions in the chat. So there's one more slide. So if we do a wrap up of everything that we've seen, it looks that Microsoft loves their Copilots. Everything is named Copilot. Every new feature, every new functionality has to be with Copilot. Lots of investments are going on in Copilot. Unfortunately, not every Copilot is the same. As you saw, behavior between the different Copilots is varying. The results are of different quality, and you have to know which Copilot to use in which case. So there's no one place to put your prompt, and it will figure it out for you. Also, not everyone in your organization needs the same Copilot. Looking at Microsoft 365 Copilot, for example, it's interesting in my role because it helps me create PowerPoint presentations, write documents, and do meeting recaps. But if most of your team or your developers never create any PowerPoint presentation or not in many meetings, it might not make sense to pay the license price for Copilot for Microsoft 365. Another learning is that Microsoft Marketing has set very high expectations. I don't know if you remember the marketing videos from, I don't know, around build timeframe last year, where they showed us how Copilot was generating beautiful PowerPoint presentations from a simple single prompt or from a Word document. And as you saw with my demos before, they are good, but they're not impressive. Like, it got all the content out of it, but the styling of those presentations is far from being beautiful. Another thing is licensing. Every Copilot can have their own licensing, so you'll have to check for each of those Copilots what the licensing model is. And there are as many licensing models as there are Copilots in Microsoft Cloud. But to wrap up, when it works, it's near magical. When it does what it needs to do and what you expect it to do, it's very impressive, where it fetches all of the information and the result that it gets to you, and how it will improve your day-to-day workflow and help you achieve more inside your daily tasks. With that, it brings me to the end. These are my details again, so you can find me on my blog, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn. Thank you for this, for staying with me on this webinar. I'm super sorry about the technical difficulties, so not much I can do about that. I hope you still enjoyed it, and if there are any more questions, Sean, this is the time.
Yeah, so we'll just wrap up there, Yannick. I think that's all the questions. So on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to extend a big thank you to you, Yannick, for taking the time today to carry out this webinar. Really appreciate it. So that's the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today, and I hope you'll join us again. Take care.